Concerns continue about carbon sequestration projects and the possible pipelines that there could be, and what exactly is happening in that space where you've got tax dollars involved to the tunes of billions and billions. Welcome in Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Let's get to this congressional briefing that a variety of groups gave last week, talking to members of Congress about the need for more regulation and oversight of carbon sequestration projects, tax credits, and more, including public safety concerns. So we're going to hear from a variety of voices that were part of this congressional testimony and some slides that they shared. One person in particular, Pam Richards with Eco Justice Collaborative out of Champaign, Illinois, really focused in on ADM and the leaks that ADM has had at their plant in Decatur. It's considered one of the first carbon sequestration plants and has been doing so for years. But earlier this year, a leak was announced, and then a subsequent leak was announced. And then they ultimately stopped their operations there, pumping carbon dioxide in liquid form deep into the ground. Here's just a graphic that was put together to kind of give an indication of how this works. Carbon capture, and then you've got utilization and geologic storage deep underground, where they pump all this down into a CO2 reservoir underneath certain layers of rock. And, some of the plans also include having pipelines traverse multiple states. There was multiple efforts to do that here in Illinois, but ultimately Governor J.B. Pritzker signed a law that puts a moratorium on these carbon pipelines. But they're still concerned because ADM is sequestering and storing carbon dioxide under the ground that they get from their own plants, and there were a couple of leaks. Well, Pam Richard with Eco Justice Collaborative talked about really what ADM knew and when they knew it, and why wasn't the Environmental Protection Agency more stern in their actions against ADM. Here's, again, some of the congressional staffer hearing they had, more of a presentation to congressional staffers.
ADM has voluntarily paused injection, but I do not understand why the EPA didn't ask them to do it. It was clearly, what we experienced with formation fluid and the well failure was clearly a violation of their permit.
So she's curious why the EPA didn't require ADM to stop operations. ADM did stop operations voluntarily, but she also says that ADM withheld information during key negotiations this year, that there was a leak when they were talking with the city of Decatur about carbon sequestration, and also when they were talking with members of the State House.
Governor Pritzker signed the bill at Decatur's CCS Research and Development Center on July 18th, like a half a mile away from the well that was leaking. Again, ADM knew their monitoring well had failed. They knew they had failed the EPA inspections, but they said nothing. So I think these actions clearly show lack of transparency to the public and to the state. And those decisions could have changed had information been shared. Maybe we would have decided to hold off passing that regulatory bill until we had answers to these questions. Maybe Decatur City Council would have said, no, until we know better what's going on, we're not gonna sign those easements with you.
So clearly questions about a lack of transparency. And Richard Cooperitz with AccuFacts, he's talked about how he's been involved in pipeline safety for 20 plus years and looking at pipeline failures. He had a lot of concerns about pipelines and just the sequestration and the leaking that's going on. And he says that there's clearly a lack of transparency.
It needs to be made public to ensure transparency and appropriate solutions are developed and approached. And transparency is a key. A company doing the right thing should have no problem telling you and showing you how he's doing the right things.
So clearly that transparency issue problematic, but it's also the taxpayer issue here. You have the members of various groups of the U.S. government looking at tax numbers In particular, you had the Office of Congressional Research put out a report in August of 2023 documenting the taxpayer cost of these programs. They say in December 2022, the Joint Committee on Taxation estimated Section 45Q associated tax expenditures would be less than $50 million per year in 2022 through 2026, or about $0.2 billion over the 2022 to 26 5-year period. But it also says the Department of Treasury's March 2022 tax expenditures estimates that it's going to be $2.4 billion for the 2022 to 2026 5-year period and $30.3 billion from 2022 to 2032, suggesting an expected increase in tax credit claims in later years. So clearly, some big concerns about those tax programs, and Paul Blackburn with Bold Alliance spelled out some of the problems they have with the language of the tax credits.
If you look at these regulations, they talk all about injection wells. They don't talk about standards for monitoring wells. I assume the monitoring wells are held to the same standards, but again, that's not required by the regulation. And if the standards are not such that they keep it, the storage is not secure, then the 45Q tax credit is based on inadequate security standards for the CO2 that's going into the ground.
So if it's leaking, then they shouldn't be able to tap into those tax credits, again, to the tune of $30 billion over 10 years between 2022 and 2032. So is that type of oversight happening? Is Congress looking into this? Is the IRS looking into this? Should the Inspector General be looking into this? Jim Walsh, he's with Food and Water Watch. He had these closing remarks during that congressional briefing.
It really highlights the fact that the carbon capture industry lacks significant oversight, not just at EPA, but really, throughout IRS and other parts of the government as well, where we really should be expecting more from regulators. And so I'm going to thank all of our speakers for these powerful, enlightening presentations. It's clear we need EPA to stop injections of CO2 into existing wells, stop permitting new wells, and stop approval of new primacy applications until we better understand the extent and cause of these leaks, and we have proper regulatory regime in place to protect the public, our drinking water supplies, and what really seem to be systemic leaks of CO2 injection wells. We need congressional action from all the congressional staff and your bosses on the call today to ensure EPA is doing more to improve monitoring, oversight, and transparency of injection wells in the country, and ensure that IRS is properly monitoring billions of dollars in tax credits that the industry is working to exploit. And this really raises serious questions about whether the Inspector General should look into numerous questions raised by these leaks, such as why the public was not notified of leaks in Illinois, what the EPA knew when and why it took so long for EPA to issue a notice of violation, what other leaks EPA knows about but they're not sharing with the public, and what leaks may exist that operators are not sharing with the public or EPA. They should also work to understand the full extent of leaking wells and the risk of leaks or potential leaks would have on drinking water and public safety. And thank you all for being here today.
So again, a lot of concerns laid out there and calls for more actual oversight, not just by Congress, but by the IRS, the EPA, and possibly even the Inspector General. We'll be watching that space closely as, of course, ADM putting out a statement to me on Friday talking about what they knew and when. They said that the company plays a critical role in the evolution of this technology. They say we routinely report to the US EPA the intermittent monitoring issues, including the discovery of corrosion at the tubing and action to plug the well in late 2023, according to our permit. The independent test results received in late 2024, July, confirmed CO2 migration of the Iron Gate Galesville were also promptly reported to the US EPA. They contend that the leaks pose no threat to surface or groundwater, nor to public health. I don't know if that's going to ease the concerns that people raised during that congressional briefing. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. We'll be watching this space closely. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us each and every weekday morning for Illinois in Focus.